So welcome everyone. This is the first episode of the Water Prairie Chronicles. My name's Steve.
And I'm Tonya, and we're bringing you the Water Prairie Chronicles podcast because we have two children who are now in college, but they both have different types of disabilities. And we found through the years that there's a huge learning curve for parents when their child's first diagnosed. And we wanted to create something that would be a tool that other parents could use.
So you mentioned the disabilities and the learning challenges that kids have. So what exactly is Water Prairie and how's that going to address that?
All right, so Water Prairie, we've kind of created it because we want to provide some inspiring life stories. And so we've pulled together a collection of people that'll come in and do some interviews with us. And we're starting in-house first, so to speak. I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a minute. But the interviews will be individuals that have disabilities who have grown through the adjustments that they've needed. And they're going to tell their stories about what it was like being a young child as a way of helping to instruct parents on how to make some decisions for their own child. When we first started, our daughter was visually impaired and we knew nothing about that. And so it helped through the years for us to meet people who were adults with low vision, or there was one point where we were able to go to a conference, and during the lunch break, they brought in teenagers who could talk about those tough teen years and having low vision. And it showed us some goals we wanted to set for our child, but also some that we wanted to try to help steer her away from. So it helped us a lot. We want to try to provide that to you virtually through a podcast that you can listen to, or the YouTube channel that we also have connected with this, where you can watch and see the faces of the people that are being interviewed. So we also, in addition to the individuals that'll be coming on, we're also inviting some different organizations to come in that can tell us about what they can provide in the community for people around the country. And we want that to be a support for the families. And so we want to be able to help answer the question of where do you start? So when you first have a diagnosis, you don't know where you're going. So you want to find out, how do I get started? Where do I go from here? And that'll be your first stepping stone. And we're going to rely on people to help us to get the resources together. Right now, the website has a state-by-state directory, and we're filling in the gaps as we get information around the country for this. This is in the United States. If you're listening or watching from out of the country, hopefully this will give you some ideas of what you might need to look for within your own country. But we're specifically concentrating on the United States with this program. So the other thing that we wanted to answer was, you and I have lived in 3 different states while the kids were growing up. And every time we had to start over again. So we started with Emily being an infant in the first state, and we kind of got connected and knew what we were doing. But then we moved and she was transitioning into school about that time. And so having to find those resources again, and we got pretty well connected in that state. And then we came to North Carolina, where we are now, and had to start all over again. So we thought by having the state-by-state database, it would help parents know, okay, so I'm going to move to Arizona. I'm just going to look in under Arizona and see what resources are there. And some of them will be for visual impairments like our daughter has. Some of them may be for learning disabilities or for hearing impairment, cerebral palsy. We're trying to get just a vast assortment of resources that you can plug into no matter what you may be facing. And so we're going to be relying on you as our audience to help feed that information to us. And the website, by the way, is waterprairie.com. So you can find what we're referring to there, and we're open to feedback. So give us ideas of what you want to see on the website, what you want to see in the interviews that we're doing. Our YouTube channel will have some extra resources on it too. So if there are things that you want us to add, product reviews or anything like that, tell us. We can do that visually on that channel.
Well, it sounds like a great idea. And hopefully as things come together, folks will be able to get a lot of resources, and hopefully a lot of folks will be helped through the process here.
I hope so. I would love to have had something like this when we were starting out.
Yeah, no kidding. So Water Prairie, that's a very unique name. How did you come up with the name Water Prairie?
Okay, so you're asking me the question, you know the answer, but they don't know the answer. Yeah. So let's see. I've teased it a little bit to see if anyone could guess what it was. But it is a little unusual story. There was a time when, it was after we'd moved to North Carolina, the children were in elementary school, and I was taking them in the summertime to a friend's pool party, and I was going to be dropping them off and going back to pick them up. and it was drizzling a little bit as we were going, and I slid just a little bit on the road while I was driving, and I just made the comment, "Shoo, we just hydroplaned," and then we kept going. The rain cleared, so I left the kids at the pool. They were having fun with everyone, and I went back a couple hours later to pick them up when the party was over. And I was asking them on the drive back how the party was, and they both had a lot of fun. And Christopher, our son, responded, "Oh, I water prairied, just like you did." It took me a minute to put it all together. That in his little mind, he had translated hydro to water, which is an appropriate comparison, and plain to prairie, because I guess the plains in the United States would be the prairie in his mind. So what he remembered was the concept of it, but the words weren't really there. And this was before he was diagnosed with a learning disability. He also has ADHD and other issues, but at this point, we didn't know any of this. He was the sibling of a special needs child and was taking the back seat a lot of times to that. And so I like the name because it reminds me of that stage of life for him before we knew anything was happening, but he was still struggling for communication issues. He had his own way of doing things, and he was surviving very well. But we had missed a few signs for him early that we might have caught had we not been more focused on his sister. And so I want Water Prairie to be a resource for parents, but I also want it to be a way to help encourage the siblings of special needs kids. And so it's there for everyone, and the name itself is a cute story, but it also helps remind us that we need to think about everyone that's involved with the families that we're trying to serve here.
Gotcha. It's definitely a unique story, and he kind of had his own little way of interpreting different words. So
he does.
Yes.
He still does.
So you've cast a pretty big vision here. Who do you envision would be interviewed on the podcast?
So I've been making some phone calls. We came up with this idea about 2 months ago, and I've been hashing it out, trying to figure out what could we do, what should we do, how realistic is it. And so I've been in contact with a lot of different people, some friends of ours and some people just around the country that I came across their names in different places. So to start out with, we have a pretty exciting lineup, I think. So we're starting in-house, as I said earlier. Our first interview will be next week on episode 2, and our daughter Emily's going to come in. Now, both of our children are in college right now. So Emily's going to do a virtual interview for me, and she's going to answer the question, what are some good accommodations for students with low vision? So if you have a child that has a visual impairment, this would really be a good conversation for you to listen to, because she's going to be sharing what her life was like growing up with low vision, some of the things that she might have liked or not liked about it, some of the accommodations that she had as a young child and that she has now that were really useful, and then some that weren't so useful. So, and then she'll also be speaking directly about having albinism and high myopia. So those are her 2 main diagnoses, but they do affect how she does everything in life. And she'll be talking, and this is the part that's exciting, is she's helping to create something new in her college right now that's going to help just expand the inclusiveness of the school. And so it's at the beginning stages right now. So she's telling us about that too.
Great.
And then episode 3 will again be in-house with our son. And so he's going to answer the question, can you play college sports with narcolepsy? So if you know anything about narcolepsy, it can be a challenge, and he's going to speak from that point of view. But he's also going to touch base on having dysgraphia and a specific learning disability, as well as ADHD, and some of the accommodations he's used through the years. And not sure if he'll go into diagnosis or anything. We'll kind of leave it up to him during the interview, because he and I haven't narrowed down all the questions yet. But those 2 are the first ones that we're going into.
Okay.
Once we get to episode 4, though, see, I've got weeks lined up here. So we have some other athletes that have different types of disabilities. We have a visually impaired student who's about to go off to college who is playing in a band. We have a specialist coming in. I'm really excited about talking to this one. I'd love to have met her when the kids were young.
Okay.
But she's going to talk about how to prepare for your IEP and some questions you should ask, what you should do. And again, we haven't hashed out all the questions yet, but this is what the topic will be.
Oh, that one sounds really practical.
Yeah, well, I hope they all are.
Yeah.
But yes, we have some specialists coming in. We have another podcaster coming in that's in our disability community.
Great.
And haven't met him yet, but we've been online chatting, and I'm looking forward to sharing what he's doing and letting him introduce his podcast to those that come in to listen here.
Okay.
And then we have some community activities too. So if you want to take your child out somewhere, we want to try to show you some ideas that you could get into, so you don't have to worry about, are they going to make a scene? Are they going to fit in? Is it going to be too overwhelming if they have sensory needs? So we're trying to find some of those types of resources too for you.
Great. So, I mean, sounds like there's a lot of potential here. If folks are listening and they know, oh, this person or this organization would be a great source or somebody for you to interview, how would they get in touch and make that recommendation to you?
I'm glad you asked that, because I meant to say that earlier, so thank you.
Okay.
So, I said earlier, if you have ideas to tell us what you want, there's different ways to get in touch with us, but everything's put together on our link tree. So if you go to linktr.ee/Water Prairie. And for those of you that aren't sure how to spell prairie, it's Prairie. I misspelled it last week, so
Uh-oh.
I can't assume that everyone knows how to spell it.
Okay.
But if you go to the link tree, that'll link you to our email, to our social media that we're on. We're pretty much Water Prairie everywhere, except I believe it's Instagram is water.prairie.
Okay.
But the email as well as the website. So you should be able to find us with that. If not, leave a comment below if you're on YouTube, and leave a comment with the podcast wherever you're listening to it. I should be able to get it through that as well.
Sounds good. So you've cast a nice vision for what the podcast is going to be. You've told us all about the podcast. When will it air, and where can folks find it?
Okay, so it starts today. You're watching it now, so whether you're watching it later or on the day that it's airing on January 28th, and it will air every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And we're putting it out as a video podcast on YouTube, and that's at Water Prairie Chronicles. And it's going to be on most of the major podcast sites as well. So right now we've already been approved for Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, Amazon Music, and there's a few others as well. But if you search any of the major ones, you'll find us. You can also go to our website, and if you go to waterprairie.com/listen, the directory of all the episodes will be there as well. So if you're
Okay.
not connected with any of the podcast platforms, you could still go to the website and still listen to it.
All right. Sounds great. I think you've covered it there.
Well, we've covered some of it, but there's a part that I wanted to throw in some fun for each of our interviews.
Okay.
And you said you weren't so sure about doing this one, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
So I thought, we're going to get a lot of people coming in, different backgrounds, different ages, different personalities. Some of the information may be a little heavy at times. Some of it may be really lighthearted and easy to listen to. But I wanted to make something easy for everyone to kind of get to know each other with.
Gotcha.
And I'd kind of like to see over time what all of our answers are, but we're going to call this section at the end of each interview the speed round. And so for the speed round, officially, you are going to be asked 10 questions, and it's a speed round, so you answer quickly with
Okay.
first thing that comes to mind. If you really get frustrated, you could always say pass.
All right.
And if you really had to, I guess you could say both on the choices.
All right.
But there'll be 3 questions, and we're going to ask every guest the same questions. So the first 3 will be an open-ended question, and the last 7 will be either or, and you'll just choose one or the other. I'm not going to time us today, but I think I may set a timer for some in the future, because I think it's going to be less than a minute to get through all this. But the big part is just have fun with this, because we're starting it, but every guest that comes up is going to be asked the same question. So I think it'll be fun to see what some of the averages are of some of the answers and who our outliers are.
Okay.
All right, so you ready?
Ready to ever go.
Virtual time clock is going. So what's your favorite color?
Blue.
What was the last book that you read?
Probably one of the Killing series from Bill O'Reilly.
Okay, what's your favorite holiday?
Probably Christmas.
Okay, and these are the either or questions.
Okay.
Cake or ice cream?
Oh, how can you have cake without ice cream?
You gotta choose one.
Probably ice cream.
Batman or Superman?
Oh, probably Batman.
Ocean or mountains?
Let's go with ocean.
Winter or summer?
Oh man, winter.
Watch a movie or read a book?
Watch a movie.
Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Is that books or movies?
You decide.
Uh,
If you're a fan, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Probably Lord of the Rings.
And Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter.
I knew that one for you. All right, so you can now do the honors and ask me questions. I'm afraid I'm going to like slip up on them and not understand what you're asking me after all this.
You got it.
All right.
You wrote the question.
I know I did. That's why it's so strange.
That's why it should be easy.
It should be. I might overthink it.
All right. Well, you've had extra time to think about it.
Exactly.
So. All right. So these are the 3 open-ended questions. First question: favorite color?
Blue.
What was the last book you read?
Any way you can.
All right. What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Okay. Now moving on to the either or: cake or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Ocean or mountains?
I guess ocean.
Wow, you surprised me with that one.
I know. I like them both equally.
Winter, summer?
Winter.
Watch a movie, read a book?
There was a time where I would have said book, but I don't have time for that now. So I guess watch a movie.
Okay. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings?
Harry Potter.
Twitter or Instagram?
I guess Instagram.
All right. That's all we got there.
All right. So, again, if you want to contact us, go to our link tree. It's linktr.ee/Water Prairie, and that'll have the contacts for everything that we have. The website is waterprairie.com, so if you just want to go straight to the website. And we'd love to hear your feedback for how the podcast goes. This is just the introduction, but once we start the interviews especially, if you can give us some feedback on what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Be kind when you say that, but I will read all of the comments. And then also any ideas that you have for future guests that you may want to see us bring on that would be helpful to other people.
Yeah, definitely welcome any constructive feedback. And like Tonya said, any people or organizations that you think would be a great fit or you'd want to see interviewed or anything, maybe you want to learn something about another topic or something that you could suggest and, have a contact or a reference and that you could refer to us, that would be appreciated.
And one final piece of housekeeping, it would help us a lot to be found on the different platforms when people are searching. If you can leave a review for us wherever you're listening to this, whether it's Apple or Google, wherever you are. And then also if you're on YouTube, if you can subscribe. The podcast, I think you can subscribe as well. I'm not as well versed in the podcast world as Steve is.
Yeah, no,
so.
I went out to Pandora and Spotify and all those, and I followed the podcast. It's very simple, so
okay, so you're able to find it easily.
Yeah,
okay, good.
It's easily found.
But yeah, it'll help us because the more responses that we get to the different platforms, the more those platforms will serve us to be able to be found by other people. So so it just helps us be a little more visible to the community that we're trying to serve. And if you're listening to this and you don't have a child with a disability, but you know someone who does, please pass this on. If you know a special ed teacher who might benefit from knowing this and being able to pass it on to their children, please pass it on. Let's get our community connected together. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
All right, sounds good.